Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Aros, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson. Thank you so much for joining us today as we discuss the propositions on the November 3rd ballot. We hope you've been taking in the League-sponsored candidate forums during these past weeks as well. If you missed them, you can go to our website's homepage, click on League News, and then watch our videos. You can also view those events and this event on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Early ballots are being mailed out in just a couple of days on October 7th, so now is definitely the time to think seriously about the state, county, and regional propositions on the November 3rd ballot. We're so fortunate today to have Cindy Sofrin reviewing these propositions for us. After retiring, Cindy and her husband moved to Tucson from the Washington, D.C. area about 6 years ago. Cindy has a degree in accounting, and while living in D.C., had a career in auditing and fiduciary estate accounting while working for KPMG International Cooperative, a multinational professional services network and one of the Big Four accounting organizations. Cindy is a member of our League Speakers Bureau and has been giving speeches on gerrymandering and various ballot propositions for the last 2 years. Since Cindy will be reviewing a number of propositions today, we would like you to be submitting your questions to her throughout the whole program, rather than waiting until the end of the event. To repeat, submit your questions at any time during the program, and Cindy will do her best to respond to those questions as they are asked. In order to ask a question, you need to find the Q&A button. Move your cursor, usually at the bottom of your screen, to bring up the menus at the bottom of your screen. Find the Q&A icon and click on it. When the Q&A panel opens, you can type your question directly into the box. When you finish typing, click enter. That's all you have to do. Another League member will be collecting the questions and communicating them to Cindy. So that's all there is to it. Let's get started. Welcome, Cindy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that lovely opening. I want to welcome everybody this afternoon. We are going to go over the 2020 ballot propositions. And I am a member of the Speakers Bureau of the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson, and today is one of the voter education programs that we put on. The 2020 ballot measures can be statewide or local. In this year, there is going to be 2 statewide propositions. One is Proposition 207, legalization of recreational marijuana use, and the other is Proposition 208, invest in ed. The statewide ballot measures can be put on the ballot either by the state legislature or by the public. If the public wants to initiate a ballot proposition, there are 2 types. It's either a statute or a constitutional amendment. The statutes they both have to have valid signatures collected in order to put that ballot issue on the ballot. If it's a statute, the number of signatures is equal to 10% of the votes cast for the governor in the previous election. And if it's a constitutional amendment, the bar is raised and it must be equal to 15% of the votes cast for the governor. Just want to remind you that in 2018, when we voted for Governor Ducey, there was a massive turnout of voters, which is wonderful. It's wonderful. We hope for that every single election. But in this case, the bar was very high to reach 10% to get these propositions on the ballot. The 2020 ballot measures that are local are Proposition 481 in the Pima Community College District, Proposition 482, the Marana Unified School District, Proposition 483, Tanque Verde Unified School District, and Proposition 484 in the Continental Elementary School District in Green Valley. Everybody in Pima County will be voting on Proposition 481. The other propositions will not show up on your ballot unless you live in those specific districts. So let's start. Proposition 207, the Smart and Safe Arizona Act, and this was referred to ballot by the public. A little bit of background. 2010, the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act was approved by 50.1% of the voters. In 2016, the Proposition 205 was put on the ballot as well to legalize recreational use of marijuana. People had problems with the way the proposition was written, and it got voted down. But voters in California, Nevada, Maine, and Massachusetts approved similar ballot measures. Now this year, 2020, the law has been improved, and Proposition 207 is also asking for legalizing of recreational use of marijuana. I want to remind everybody that the production, possession, and use of marijuana remains illegal under existing federal law. So what does this bill do? Well, first of all, legalizes the possession and use of 1 ounce of marijuana or 5 grams of concentrate for persons who are at least 21 years old. Concentrate is marijuana that's been cooked down and made into a more concentrated form and is used in some of the drinks or the candies that are considered edible marijuana products. The second thing it does is it enacts a 16% excise tax on marijuana sales. And it also requires the Arizona Department of Health and Human Services to develop rules to regulate the marijuana businesses. So what are they going to do with all this money? Well, there's a lot of people that are going to get a little share of it because they're expecting that a lot of money is going to be raised by that 16% excise tax. The state agencies that have to administer this are going to have to be reimbursed for their administrative costs. And then come the local law enforcement and fire departments, and they will get 31.4%. Community colleges will get 33%. State and local transportation programs are going to receive 25.4%, and the 10% will go to the public health and criminal justice programs. And the Attorney General gets 0.2% for enforcement. So that's where they expect all of this to go. For each one, I will go through what a yes and a no vote means. In this case, a yes vote legalizes recreational use of marijuana for people 21 years and older. A no vote says no, recreational possession and use of marijuana will be illegal under Arizona law. The medical marijuana will remain. What are the arguments for marijuana recreational use? Well, marijuana is used, and marijuana is safest when sold and used in a legal regulated environment. It frees up the police to concentrate on hard crime, generates revenue for the state, and allows people previously convicted of low-level marijuana charges to have their records sealed so they have fair access to jobs and housing. But there are arguments against as well. And these are suppositions because there is no proof, but they could result in increased workplace accidents, lower workplace productivity, more highway deaths, increased teen drug use, more newborns exposed to marijuana, and increased costs of drug treatment and rehabilitation. None of these have actually been proved by studying. And we have data from the states that have recreational marijuana, and they are working on those statistics as we speak. But so far, they have not been able to prove any of these fears true. These are the groups that are supporting Prop 207. And as I said, there's a 207 in the bottom right. You can read them for yourself. And these are groups opposing Prop 207. I'll give you a minute and scan it. Proposition 208 is the Invest in Education Act, and this was also referred to the ballot by the public. What does this do? Well, it enacts a 3.5% income tax surcharge on the highest income brackets to increase funding for education. It's projected to generate $827 million in revenue, and the money will go to public school districts, charter schools, state schools for the deaf and blind, and 2 specified funds. 50% of the money will go for hiring teachers and classroom support staff, 25% to hire student support personnel, 10% to provide mentoring and retention programs for new teachers, and 12% will create a career training and workforce fund, and 3% will create an Arizona Teachers Academy Fund. That last one is to encourage students and provide certain scholarships and grants to attract students, and hopefully they will choose teaching as their profession. A yes vote enacts a 3.5% additional tax on income above $250,000 taxable income, that's after deductions, for a single taxpayer, or $500,000 for joint filers. A no retains the current tax structure at 4.5% on incomes above $159,000 for single taxpayers and $318,000 for joint filers. The arguments for the need for this proposition are that Arizona's per child spending on education is among the lowest in the nation. It's way at the bottom of the list. But this also restores $800 million in school funding that was lost during the recession. An additional tax burden to high-end taxpayers is small, while the impact to schools is very significant. And it encourages people to enter the teaching profession with a higher salary and additional professional development as an attraction. Future economic growth requires a well-educated workforce, and hopefully additional funds for education will have that effect. What are the arguments against 208? Well, some people think that small business owners who file as individuals would pay more, which may discourage job creation. This is not necessarily so. Small businesses who file as individuals, if they have over $250,000 or $500,000 of taxable income, have a very successful business, and they will probably be creating jobs anyway, and job creation is an expense of the business, so it'll lower their taxable income. So I don't think that that's really valid, but people are proposing that that is an argument against 208. But it may discourage new residents and businesses from coming to Arizona and increase those who are leaving. This is a supposition as well, and we'll just have to wait and see if this is put into effect, whether that actually happens. It does, one of the arguments against also does not include funding for early childhood education, colleges, or universities. And I must say that the K through 12 is the portion of Arizona's education that is at the bottom of the list. They are correct. 208 does not fund either of those sections of the education spectrum. Let's see. So we have here groups supporting 208. You can take a look at those. And here are the groups opposing 208. So that is those are the two statewide propositions. Now we move on to the locals. Proposition 481 is the one for all of Pima County, and it is for the adjustment of expenditure limit. It is referred to the Pima County ballot by Pima Community College governing body. The first thing we need to cover is what is an expenditure limitation? I'm not that new to Arizona, but I still did not know what this meant. So I did a lot of research, and Arizona law, well, it's actually the Arizona Constitution, Section 9, caps the amount of tax-based revenue that a community college district can use for operational purposes. Now, the annual expenditure limitation is determined each year by formula that is done by an executive commission. The annual EL uses the original base that limits PCC spending on operations and was established in 1979 when that constitutional section was approved. And that at that time, PCC spent less than other community colleges. So their base is lower automatically, and every time you get a percentage to increase the base, it's on a lower amount than the other counties got, except for Maricopa. I think Maricopa was also limited to the 1979 limit. This Proposition 481 will raise the base by $11.5 million to $30.6 million, which would bring PCC up to the state average. I just want to let you know that the League of Women Voters supports 208, and we've done a lot of work on this. The PCC spending limit is really shown very well by this chart. As you can see, this is the average spending on a full-time student equivalent. That's $8,688. Pima is now spending $5,423. And as you can see, Maricopa and Pima are the lowest in per student spending, because their base is limited to the 1979 amount. So what does 481 do? Well, it asks voters to approve a permanent increase of the current base expenditure limit used in the formula that determines what PCC can spend each year to fund operations. It is not a new tax. It resets the formula to put PCC on average with the other community colleges and allows PCC to spend $3,000 more per student without raising taxes. This is not a new tax. It gives PCC flexibility to redirect tax revenue previously used for buildings and maintenance into academic programs and student programs. It's not a new tax. Just to let you know, the reason that I keep saying that is because that is that's the touch point for more people. Is it going to cost me more money? Where will the money go? You can see it's going to equip and staff career training programs, which are very important these days. And it will also provide quality student services, including childcare, financial and technological help and education. And it will also support student success and entrepreneurship, which is a big thing in colleges these days. Sorry, a yes and no vote. What does the yes vote mean? The expenditure limitation will be increased. And a no vote, the expenditure limitation will remain where it was when it was first passed in 1979. No, the arguments for are that it gives PCC flexibility to spend its existing revenue, which is from taxes and frozen bonds, more effectively in the future. A frozen bond, there was a bond issue that was made for, that PCC floated, and it has been allocated, and it has not been fully spent, but it has been fully allocated. And in the nonprofit funding world, it's as good as gone. So that can't be touched for the additional programs that PCC wants to initiate. As I said before, it adds $3,000 per full-time equivalent student, and it funds the state-of-the-art programs focusing on student career goals and employer workforce needs. The arguments against are PCC has previously misspent money on building acquisition, renovation, and construction. And a no vote signals dissatisfaction with previous spending decisions. These are the groups that support Prop 481. Take a look. These are the people, the individuals who support Prop 481. And these are the people who are opposing Prop 481. These two gentlemen are not related, by the way. I just wanted to let you know that. But they are the only ones that made that complaint that PCC has not spent money on buildings and construction properly in the past. And so they don't support increasing the limit this time. Now, Proposition 482 is for the people who live in the Marana Unified School District. It is an M&O budget override continuation, which I'll explain in a moment. What it does is it extends a 10% maintenance and operations M&O budget override that is currently in place for 7 more years. Excuse me. It provides about $8 million for day-to-day operation expenditures such as teacher salaries, supplies, and utilities. And it's funded by a property tax levy that was authorized in 2007. So it's not a new tax. The tax is just going to be extended. So budget override, the state sets strict limits on the amount that local school districts can spend on the education of students. If the districts want to spend more on their children's education, then they are allowed to increase their maintenance and operations budget by up to 15% if the voters approve, because the voters are going to have to pay for that. By the additional money is funded by a levy of property taxes. Now, an override usually lasts 7 years. If it is not reapproved, then in year 5, it starts to decrease. Year 6, another third goes away, and in year 7, it becomes 0. How will this money be used? You can take a look. Continuing programs and services that are now already offered to students, and it will also help to stabilize class size. So these are all very good program uses of the money that they are trying to raise. A yes vote says the override should continue for 7 more years. And a no vote says the override should be phased out starting in 2022. The arguments for is that spending cutbacks will erode educational quality in Marana. The other thing that you hear about strong schools is that it enhances your property values. If you're a person and you're shopping for a house somewhere and you have kids, that's what you look for, a strong school system. And the other argument for is that an educated workforce is a key to economic growth. The arguments against say that the override will be phased out by 2024 and a savings of $157 annually to a homeowner with an average value property, which is considered about $100,000. These are the groups and the people who are supporting Prop 482. And these are the ones who are opposed. Nobody. Nobody has come forth and proposed any opposition. So let's move on to Proposition 483. This will appear on your ballot if you live in the Tanque Verde Unified School District. And this is another way that schools are funded by floating bonds. So this allows the school district to raise $16.1 million construction and renovation of school facilities. The money will be combined with a one-time grant of funds by the State School Facilities Board to build classrooms and labs and upgrade technology, renovate existing facilities, and purchase new school buses. The bonds will be financed by a tax levy costing average homeowner $62 per year for 19 years. And that's why this must be approved by the voters, because they are going to be they will be paying for it. What is a school bond? Well, it's a common form of school district financing for capital projects like construction or buying equipment. Essentially, it's a loan from investors who buy bonds issued by a specific district. The loan is paid back with interest over a specified period of time, and the principal and interest are paid out of property taxes. So Tanque Verde will have an increase in property taxes if they pass this bond issue. This is how Tanque intends to use their bonds to build and equip classrooms and science labs for the expanding school-age population that they've noticed. And they will update their aging facilities, upgrade their technology, which we have found to be very important these days, and replace aging school buses, which is a safety issue as well. If the voters vote yes, then it permits the sale of bonds, and a no vote prevents the sale of bonds. The people who support it argue for improvements that will help TVUSD retain its current high ranking, which will in turn enhance your property values if you live in the Tanque district. Schools will be equipped to meet the accelerating demands for a well-educated workforce. The bond plan leverages the state grant in an effective state-local partnership, and there will be a minimal cost to taxpayers of $62 per year for 19 years. Now, there are some people who feel that $62 is an additional financial burden which may not be able to be carried by an average property owner. Again, the average property price is about $100,000. Oh, sorry. These are the groups and the people who support Prop 483. And there has been nobody coming forward yet who opposed Prop 483. And the final one is another budget override, which you know about now, Proposition 484, which is referred to the ballot by the Continental Elementary School District, which is in Green Valley. So if you don't live in Green Valley, you won't see this on your ballot, but if you do, this is your vote. What does it do? It extends the 14% maintenance and operations budget override originally approved by voters in 2006. It provides about $526,000 for day-to-day expenditures such as teacher salaries, supplies, and utilities. There is no new tax, again, required for this extension. It's based on a property tax levy that was authorized in 2006. They plan to use the money to support efforts to maintain present service levels, offset state and federal funding reductions, and minimize class size increases. And these are the programs that they are planning to continue funding. A yes vote will override and continue for 7 more years. And a no vote, the override will be phased out starting in 2022. The 4 arguments. It not approved, primary school spending will be reduced by $526,000, which with a negative impact to the quality education in Green Valley. It is also the only elementary school in the town, and Continental is essential to the community cohesiveness and quality of life. And no taxes will change. It'll just be a continuation. But there are arguments against it, and the tax levy supporting the override will be phased out by 2022 at a savings of about $30 annually to a homeowner with a property value of about $100,000, which is considered the average. These are the people and the groups that are supporting Prop 484. And nobody has come forward to oppose Prop 484. So it'll be interesting on Election Day. This is a copy of what you would see on the recorder's page. It has all the deadlines for voting and ballot ordering. So I just want to encourage you that if you have any questions, that you go to www, right up here, recorder.pima.gov, and make sure that everything that you are doing has met the deadline or will meet the deadline. And League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson want to encourage you to vote on or before November 3rd. Please vote, it's your duty. And as Kathy said at the beginning, If you want to see this on Facebook or on the League of Women Voters Greater Tucson YouTube channel, you can go to the website of lwvtucson.org and click on the links there. And I thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Cindy, thank you so much. No questions. That means all the questions were answered. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson for this voter education program on the propositions that are going to be on the November 3rd ballot. And thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing all of this important information about the ballot propositions. So I'm going to remind everybody as well, please, please be sure to vote by mail or early at your polling place on Tuesday, November 3rd. And I'm going to repeat it again. You can view a recording of this program on the Facebook page for the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson, as well as on our YouTube channel. So this is Kathy Aros for the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson, signing off for now. Be sure to join us for our next event. And thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.